With us now, Major Garrett, CBS News Chief Washington Correspondent. Major, thanks so much for being with us so we can talk about the RNC. Now, the campaign promised an upbeat, optimistic convention. No new party platform this time around. So did they accomplish what they set out to do last night?
Well, they tried to, but there were definitely mixed messages. On the one hand, there was President Trump created a really strong U.S. economy. Then the pandemic hit, and much of the references to the pandemic were on the positive side. The American public will evaluate how truthful those were. I mean, obviously, if this were a situation where the pandemic was under control, the convention would be a natural, real convention. But this isn't. It's a virtual convention with almost no exposure in Charlotte at all, which was the original intent. And this whole question about socialism, many speech givers said the Democrats not only want to bring socialism to America, a debatable charge, but one they leveled aggressively, but they also are in favor of mob rule and angry people in the streets bent on destruction. That's a heavyweight charge, and the American public will evaluate just how truthful they think that is. But that's very heavy rhetoric, and it indicates the rhetoric is only going to get tougher from here until Election Day.
I can imagine. Major, our question last week for the Democrats was whether or not the stripped-down version of a convention would motivate and expand the base. Do we know whether Republicans were energized by what they saw?
Well, I'm sure the Trump base was. They love to see members of the Trump family, and they love to see members of Congress who defend the president's agenda and his personal approach to politics aggressively, and they did. One common theme you heard last night was, yes, Trump is rough around the edges. He bothers people. He irritates people. But his heart is in the right place. He loves America. And even though he ruffles feathers in Washington, he gets the job done. That was the way to try to soften those voters who are either exhausted or simply don't like Donald Trump. And they're trying to tell them, put that aside if you can and think about the other things on the policy level that have actually been accomplished. It is a difficult rhetorical task, but the Republicans tried to take it on.
You just said his base really likes to see members of his family. Well, then tonight they are certainly in for a treat because 3 of the members of his family are going to be speaking tonight, including the First Lady, Melania Trump. We also have Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is part of the president's impeachment legal team. How might tonight's speakers make their case for the president's reelection?
Well, Melania Trump will be on the softer side of things, also talking about the personal side she sees in the President of the United States. Every First Lady does that. She is not an aggressive political combatant. She's not going to be one tonight. Mike Pompeo is doing something without precedent in American history. He's on an official government trip for the United States, representing everyone in the United States as its chief diplomat, and yet giving an archly partisan speech while on that government-funded diplomatic trip. That's never, ever happened before. One thing Democrats said at their convention last week is this administration breaks norms and does so at the peril of our democracy. Well, this is a norm being broken, and the Secretary of State is essentially telling the country, I'm breaking it in full public view, and if you re-elect Donald Trump, you'll tell the country you don't really mind.
Major Garrett, thank you for joining us. We look forward to CBS News coverage of the convention tonight.